Every kid who loves football has a hero. For Kyle Williams, that hero was Stefon Diggs. Growing up, Kyle spent countless hours in his backyard. He wasn't just playing catch, he was living a dream. In his mind, the grass was the turf of a massive NFL stadium. The roaring crowd was just the sound of leaves rustling in the wind. Kyle would throw the football up to himself, then leap to make an impossible catch. He would imagine the announcer screaming his name. But in those moments, he wasn't just Kyle Williams. He was Stefon Diggs, making another game-winning play. He saw Diggs not just as a great player, but as the blueprint for what he wanted to become. Kyle's bedroom walls were a shrine to number 14. Posters of Diggs in his Vikings purple and later his Bills blue covered every inch of space. He had jerseys, signed photos, and even a collection of highlight reels saved on his computer. He would watch them over and over again. He studied every move, every juke, every spectacular one-handed grab. To his friends, he was just a kid who was really good at football. But Kyle knew his secret. He was a student, and Stefon Diggs was his professor. He learned the game by watching the best, and in his eyes, nobody was better than Diggs. This wasn't just a phase. It was the foundation of his entire football journey. His family saw his passion. They saw the dedication. His dad would come home from work and find Kyle still outside, long after the sun had started to set. He was practicing the same routes he had seen Diggs run on Sunday. He was working on his footwork, trying to make his cuts as sharp and as sudden as his idols. Kyle didn't just want to be good. He wanted to be Diggs-level good. That meant relentless practice and an unbreakable focus. He believed that if he worked hard enough, if he studied enough, maybe, just maybe, he could one day step onto the same field as his hero. It was a distant dream, but it was the fuel that powered his every move. This admiration went beyond the highlight plays. Kyle paid attention to Diggs' interviews. He saw the passion, the fire, and the competitive spirit. He saw a player who demanded the best from himself and his teammates. That resonated with Kyle. It showed him that being a top receiver wasn't just about talent, it was about mindset. It was about having that dog in you, that refusal to be outworked or outplayed. So as Kyle dominated his youth league games, he tried to carry himself with that same confidence. He wanted to be a leader, a playmaker, and a winner, just like Stefon Diggs. As Kyle moved up through the ranks, from high school to college, his secret training method never changed. Film study was his favorite class. While his teammates were watching game tape of their next opponent, Kyle was doing double duty. He would spend extra hours breaking down Stefon Diggs' routes from the previous week's game. He wasn't just watching, he was analyzing. He looked at how Diggs used his hands to beat press coverage at the line of scrimmage. He studied the subtle head fakes and shoulder dips that created separation from defenders. It was like having a private coach, one who didn't even know he was teaching. Kyle started incorporating these moves into his own game. His coaches noticed the improvement immediately. His routes became crisper. His ability to get open in tight windows looked effortless. They would praise his natural talent, but Kyle knew the truth. This natural talent was forged by hours of mimicking his idol. He practiced the toe drag swag on the sideline until it became second nature. He worked on his body control, learning how to adjust to poorly thrown balls, just like he'd seen Diggs do 100 times. He was building himself piece by piece into a reflection of the player he admired most. His college quarterback loved throwing to him. Kyle had a knack for being exactly where he needed to be. He understood timing and spacing on a different level. That's because he had learned from Diggs that a route isn't just about running from point A to point B. It's a story you tell the defender. It has a beginning, a middle, and a surprising end. Kyle learned how to sell a deep route before breaking it off for a short gain. He learned how to use his speed to his advantage, not just to run fast, but to run smart. Every successful play was a silent thank you to his unseen mentor. The results were undeniable. Kyle became an All-American. NFL scouts started talking about his pro-level route running and his reliable hands. They called him a polished prospect, one who was ready for the next level. Every time he heard those compliments, Kyle would smile to himself. They were complimenting his hard work, but they were also, indirectly, complimenting Stefon Diggs. Kyle had taken the master's teachings and made them his own. He had turned his childhood admiration into a tangible skill set that was now punching his ticket to the National Football League. Draft day was a blur for Kyle Williams. The phone call, the celebration with his family, the moment he saw his name on the screen, it was everything he had ever dreamed of. And then, the destination was announced, the New England Patriots. Kyle's heart pounded in his chest. A wave of excitement and pure terror washed over him. The Patriots had recently made a blockbuster trade. Their new #1 receiver was none other than Stefon Diggs. Kyle was going to be teammates with his hero. The kid who had posters on his wall was now going to share a locker room with the man on the poster. It was surreal. Walking into the Patriots facility for the first time was intimidating. The building itself felt historic, filled with championship energy. But for Kyle, the most daunting part was knowing Stefon Diggs was somewhere inside. He was no longer just a face on a screen. He was a real person, a colleague. Kyle felt a nervous energy he hadn't experienced since his very first Pop Warner game. What would he say? How should he act? All the confidence he had built up suddenly felt fragile. He was a rookie, a newcomer, and his idol was now his peer. It was a dream come true, but it was also terrifying. The first few days of practice were a whirlwind. Kyle tried to focus on his playbook, on learning the system, on making a good impression on the coaches, but he couldn't help but steal glances at Diggs. He watched how he prepared, how he stretched, how he communicated with the quarterbacks. It was one thing to watch him on tape, but seeing the work ethic and professionalism up close was a whole different level of inspiration. Diggs was even better in person. His movements were smoother, his focus more intense. Kyle realized he had so much more to learn. This was his chance to learn from the master, directly. Every time Diggs would run a route, Kyle would watch intently. He was like a sponge, trying to soak up every possible detail. He saw the little things that the TV cameras missed, the way Diggs talked with the defensive backs, the leadership he showed in the huddle, the encouragement he gave to younger players. Seeing this side of his hero made Kyle's admiration grow even deeper. He wasn't just a phenomenal athlete, he was a true professional. The initial nervousness started to fade, replaced by a profound sense of gratitude. Kyle knew this was the opportunity of a lifetime, and he was determined not to waste it. Despite being on the same team, Kyle made a critical decision. He would keep his lifelong admiration a secret. He didn't want Stefon Diggs to know he was his childhood hero. Why? Because Kyle wanted to earn his respect as a player, not as a fan. He worried that if he confessed, "Hey man, I've got your posters all over my wall," Diggs might see him as just a starstruck rookie. He wanted to be seen as an equal, a teammate who could be counted on, someone who belonged in the same huddle. He didn't want their relationship to be defined by his fandom, but by their shared goal of winning football games. So around Diggs, Kyle plays it cool. He keeps his conversations professional and focused on football. He asks questions about specific plays or coverages, but he never lets on that he's been studying Diggs' every move for over a decade. He treats him with the respect a veteran deserves, but he tries his best to act like it's just another day at the office. Inside, his heart might be racing when Diggs gives him a word of advice, but on the outside, he just nods and says, "Got it, thanks." It's the hardest acting job of his life, but he's committed to the role. This internal secret creates a funny dynamic for Kyle. He's living the dream, practicing every day with the player who inspired him to chase that dream in the first place. He gets to see his hero's work ethic firsthand, which pushes him to work even harder. He's learning more in a few weeks of practice than he could from 1,000 hours of watching tape. It's the ultimate learning experience. Yet, he has to suppress the urge to geek out. He has to pretend that catching a perfectly thrown pass from the same quarterback as Diggs is just a normal part of his day. Ultimately, Kyle's secret is a sign of his maturity. He understands that to succeed in the NFL, you have to be more than just a fan. You have to be a professional. He is channeling his admiration into motivation. Every day, he comes to work ready to prove that he belongs on that field. He wants to be so good that one day, Stefon Diggs looks at him not as a rookie, but as a dangerous weapon on the other side of the formation. And maybe, just maybe, after they've won a Super Bowl together, he'll finally tell his hero the truth. Until then, the secret is safe.